If we don't get good at it and we don't share our ideas, whether they're about someone you love at a wedding, or whether they're about these policies or things that, innovation or whatever it is, if we can't share and inspire each other that way, then those ideas go and die.
Hi everyone, I'm Scott Omelianuk, Scott O, the editor-in-chief of Inc., and today I am with Victoria Wellman, the co-founder of the Oratory Laboratory.
The Oratory Laboratory, but that's okay. No one says it right, and I'm sure you have that problem with your last name, right? No one says it right?
That's why I go by Scott O.
Well, there you go.
Yeah. So what is the Oratory Laboratory exactly? Nicely done?
Nicely done.
Good.
That was started really in a very unglamorous minivan. I'd been to a sort of slew of weddings that summer, and it was just so frustrating to hear bad speeches every single time. It like ruins the event, right? Like someone needs to help these people, and then the light bulb went off.
We're going to hear from some great speakers today, and some terrible ones maybe, with some great speeches and some terrible speeches. So our producers tell me. I don't know, I haven't watched them yet, but we're going to hit play here and see what happens.
In 2009, I met a thought leader, and I asked him, how did you become a thought leader? And you know what he said? He said, I don't know. Now that doesn't sound important, and it's not. But if I repeat it 3 times, I'm making you believe that it is important. He said, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. Let's look at a picture of the planet for no reason.
They're painful when they're that canned, right? Because they don't feel authentic, like you talked about, right?
He brings up so many points just by doing this, right? You've got the use of slides, right, for no reason. I mean, that is something we see over and over again, right? Oh, I have to put up a PowerPoint or some sort of like presentation because that's just what's expected of me, and so I'll just like slap up these slides without thinking about how they connect to what you're actually saying. I would prefer to say, let's think about what story we're telling first, and then let's see what slides we need.
What about his cadence there?
Sometimes people are slow because they're so busy trying to perform. And I say, well, you know what, let's just pretend we're in a bar and you're telling me this. Speak to me like a human being. And no matter what kind of speech, your delivery should sort of reflect like who you are.
I will be a commander-in-chief that will have the back of the military. I won't trash talk. I won't be a divider-in-chief or an agitator-in-chief. I won't be out there blowharding, talking a big game without backing it up. I think the next president needs to be a lot quieter, but send a signal that we're prepared to act in the national security interests of this country, to get back in the business of creating a more peaceful world. Please clap.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because on the one hand, I would say, great in the moment reaction from him. Like, he's not afraid to say, that's the moment you were meant to clap. And so I actually would salute him for that.
So that's good.
I think, yes, because he's present, right? He's not sort of just internalizing the fact that they didn't clap and then, but I think the reason that they didn't clap is because he didn't say anything. He was in the middle of walking over there.
Yeah, there was no pause, right? There was no invitation.
Yes, how are they meant
Right.
to know? It wasn't such an obvious line. I mean, what he was basically saying was, by the way, I'm a bit of not a great, impactful speaker, and I'm probably not going to be the most inspiring leader, but I'm quiet and I'll do a really good job, so please vote for me. I mean, that's what he was saying. He was like selling himself and all his shortcomings. If a crowd is going to whoop and cheer the same way, like you have to give them space to do that. Or if you get a heckler, shouting something, you need to be able to respond to that.
I remember innocent joy more than 10 years ago after the opening ceremony of the London Olympics, when I told her that the leader of a friendly Middle Eastern country seemed actually to believe that she had jumped out of a helicopter in a pink dress and parachuted into the stadium. She knew how to keep us going when times were toughest. In 1940, when this country and this democracy faced the real possibility of extinction, she gave a broadcast, aged only 14, that was intended to reassure the children of Britain. She said then, "We know, every one of us, that in the end, all will be well." She was right.
Boris Johnson, you have to put aside your political, persuasions, because I don't need him as the leader of Britain, but he is a student of, rhetoric and Churchill, and he knows what he's doing. This was like as close to a eulogy as you got, where he talked about her role as queen, but he also infused sort of personal anecdote to sort of bring the people in right at the top. But they're usually screaming across the aisle at each other, and in that moment, he brought everyone together. And humor is just has such power, and clarity is so important when you're writing, because you have to remember that you're writing not for someone to read your speech, but for someone to hear it once.
So forgive me, I thought I was gonna have a podium, so I'm gonna do this the best I can without one. Now, you would think that those of us who are kept from our full rights of citizenship would band together and fight the good fight. But history tells us that no, often we don't. Women, poor people, people of color, people with disabilities, immigrants, gay men, lesbians, bisexuals, trans people, intersex people, we have been pitted against each other and made to feel like there are limited seats at the table for those of us who fall into the category of other.
So let's talk about the fact that she turned up at a place that did not have the speaking setup.
Yeah.
That she
I mean,
did.
I think this goes back to this authenticity piece, right? Like, I think she was expecting to get up and put her thing down on the podium and be able to make you forget for a minute that she was reading off anything, right? That it would give her this kind of like sort of presence, stage presence, and then suddenly even someone like her is like, flustered that like, oh my God, I'm gonna have to like read
Kerry
off
Washington's
this.
no stranger to being.
But you saw that she was like, But then she really is reading her speech, because she doesn't have somewhere to put it. I think she probably looks up a little bit less than she might have if she'd had a podium. It doesn't matter. Like it just doesn't matter, because what she wrote is powerful, and the language, to go back to that point, is like really simple. She uses direct speech and thought, she's speaking to us on a very human level, and so like I don't care that you're holding the piece of paper.
The conversation at dinner was about traditional Igbo culture, about the custom that allows only men to break the kola nut. And the kola nut is a deeply symbolic part of Igbo cosmology. I argued that it would be better if that honor were based on achievement rather than gender. And this man looked at me and said dismissively, "You don't know what you're talking about, you're a small girl." I wanted him to disagree with the substance of my argument, but by looking at me, young and female, it was easy for him to dismiss what I said. So I decided to try and look older, and I thought lipstick might help, and eyeliner. And I'm very grateful to that man, because I have since come to love makeup.
She does a few great things. First of all, she's so likable.
That's not something you can practice, is it? Or is it?
Well, I think if you...
Because we need to talk if you can.
I think, the reason that I think this video, I really like it, is because she's a storyteller. She's just a brilliant storyteller. Because she really understands how to tell stories from her own life that people can really relate to, and then have a lesson in every single one. It doesn't matter that there actually isn't the through line. And the thing that I really believe, and the reason I do what I do, and the reason I wrote the book, is because I just don't think there is a correct way to ever write and deliver a speech. It is entirely about you, your circumstance, your personality, this crowd, the place you're doing it, what you did before, what you've said before, what you're trying to get out of it. There are so many variables. So how could you possibly sort of fit that into some sort of prescriptive formula. It doesn't make sense. When you think about what it is that you're going to be saying, you want to think about what can I give them that they haven't heard before. So I would spend a couple of days just, do your brain dump, throw your ideas down, but then go off and kind of just do some reading and listening and thinking about what other ways can you bring to life your point that you haven't already thought of. Be really curious and take some risks and be willing to explore ideas.
And then practice and be authentic.
Practice, write as many drafts as you want, don't fall in love with your ideas. Call me. I'll write your speech. What are we saying here?
Why are we even having this
Yeah, exactly.
discussion?
This is a ridiculous conversation.